I'm a self-promoter. I'm a very good-looking guy. I'm an idol to some. I'm a brainless idiot. I'm your daddy. I'm a psychopath. I'm unstable. I'm a curmudgeon's curmudgeon. I'm an animal. I'm a tyrant. I'm a physical peon. But I'm a man. I'm incompetent with women. I'm one of the great Casanovas of all time. I'm a hypocrite. I'm a coward. I'm a nut job.
Welcome to Termini Crashes Out, an NBA podcast with Justin Termini, brought to you by DCLA. And now it's time for Termini to crash out.
All right, Termini crashes out. It's episode 8 or 9. I got to go back and count these things. We are all dressed up today in one of my Deepak suits, as you heard. The sponsor of the program here today, DCLA out in Los Angeles. You can go visit bydcla.com, bydcla.com, if you want to pick up one of these awesome suits like I'm sporting here today. My dog, Zuzu, always gets a little bit uncomfortable whenever I throw one of these on because I'm not taking her. When I'm throwing on the nice suit, it means I'm leaving her behind. So she gets to sit on the couch today while I go to the Celtics game later tonight against the Charlotte Hornets. That could be a first-round preview. But listen, I'm not even in a good mood, and that always makes for a better show because a couple of days ago, I'm in shorts. I'm outside playing tennis at like 6:30 in the morning. Okay, that's part of my routine when the weather is all right. That is the only time I have played since early December. Then I look out the window here this morning in Boston on April 7th, where it's, baseball season here. They got games at Fenway Park, and it's actually snowing outside. And it wasn't just a little snow. It was actual substantial snow outside. Thankfully, it's not sticking, but the weather is miserable. It looks like it's going to be that way for at least another week. And when the weather is miserable, it means I'm agitated. And when I'm agitated, it leads to a better show. So I want to do some different things here today before we get to the story time. I've been ending each show with a story. I've actually got great feedback on that so far. We've done some Rick Barry stories, some Bill Walton stories, a Joe Mazzulla story, a Mike Dunleavy Sr. story. We'll get a Bill Russell story in here at the end of the show today. My only interview with Bill Russell was an absolute disaster. I'll explain how at the conclusion of our little YouTube program here today. But I don't always want to be repetitive in case some of you are watching this show and some are also listening to Eddie and myself do the show on Sirius XM NBA Radio on the NBA app. So I wanted to, take a couple of different approaches. Obviously, there's some stuff that we have to address both places. One of them being Victor Wembanyama, and I'll term it this way, with the bruised rib. And it's too bad because I had Wemby number 2 on my MVP ballot. I was going against the grain here a little bit because I don't think SGA, as good as he is capable of doing what Jokic is capable of doing when Jokic has it clicking, what Wembanyama is capable of doing when Wembanyama has it clicking. As good as SGA is, and he's the best guard by a good amount here, I still think a lot of what he does in regards to winning is based off Oklahoma City's defense. They're basically the 1985 Bears. Oklahoma City is one of the great defenses of all time. It allows SGA to go out there and focus solely on scoring, whereas Jokic has to score, rebound, set up his teammates. Wembanyama has to defend at a high level, has to do stuff offensively as well, has to rebound the basketball. I mean, I saw a stat there the other day where Jason Tatum, who just came back, has 9 double-doubles on the season so far. SGA, the entire year, has 7. And I'm supposed to say that he is the MVP over Jokic? I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. You can vote for him if you'd like it. It seems like he's a runaway winner. I think Jokic is the best player. I think Jokic is having the best season. I think quietly on his heels is Victor Wembanyama. And then I would go SGA third. And then after that, it's going to be a debacle. However, now, we might not be able to put Wembanyama on our list here for MVP. You got to play 65 games, or in Wembanyama's case, 64, because he played in the in-season tournament game, the final NBA Cup. That gave him an extra game. That counts towards it. So Wembanyama's got to play one of the final 3 games here in order to qualify for these awards. The issue is he bruises his rib last night. They have 3 games left. Is he going to be healthy enough to play? And I hope that he is because, I mean, think about it this way. About a week ago, we were talking about this being one of the best MVP races of all time. In fact, I addressed it here on the YouTube show. You have 1962, which was Russell who finished first, somehow ahead of Wilt Chamberlain, who averaged 50 and 25. Then you had Oscar Robertson third, who averaged a triple-double, a 30-point triple-double. Jerry West finished fourth or fifth, I believe, and I think it was Elgin Baylor fourth. And Elgin Baylor was going back and forth between the barracks and the military and the Lakers. He averaged over 38 points, played a little bit more than half the season, but you get the point. That was a stacked MVP race, as was, late 80s got a bunch of stacked ones with Jordan, Magic, and Bird all vying for the award. But this one was on par. SGA, Jokic, Wembanyama, Luka. All of a sudden, now it might be one of the weakest after the top two. We could have Jaylen Brown finishing third if Luka's not eligible and Wembanyama's not eligible. And as great of a season as Jaylen Brown has had, that's got to be one of the worst third-place finishes we've ever seen in the history of the sport. Certainly deserving of being on the cusp of the top five, maybe four, maybe five, but the third-place finish? That's what we could end up seeing here if Wemby's not eligible and Luka's not eligible. And, on the same week that we essentially saw Cade eliminated, he would have gotten a bunch of top five votes. Saw Anthony Edwards eliminated here with the knee. So all of a sudden, the MVP race goes from historic to mediocre at best, at least behind the top two in SGA and Jokic, if Wembanyama doesn't qualify. And I hope Wembanyama qualifies because, as you know, by listening to the show, I think he has the potential to be the greatest player in the history of the sport. Offensively, he's already a stud. Defensively, he already plays and does stuff to a level I have never seen on that end of the ball. He seems focused. He wants things. He's dedicated to his craft. But you have to stay healthy, one. And two, you have to start racking up the awards. I went back and I just looked, and I had done this at the beginning of the season, and I'm revisiting it here. I went back and I looked at my 7 GOATs. All right, so I don't really rank anybody 1 through 7. What I do tell you is that there are 7 guys capable of being called the greatest player of all time without you saying that you're stupid or somebody is stupid because they think that guy is the greatest player of all time. As great as I think Shaq was, as great as I think Duncan, Hakeem, Jerry West, Kobe Bryant, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, as great as I think those guys are, I don't think you could make a justifiable argument that they are the greatest player of all time. The 7 guys I think you can call the greatest players of all time without somebody calling you stupid are Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as your bigs, and then LeBron, Bird, Magic, and Jordan as your guards. Those are the only guys that have a seat at the table in the discussion of the greatest player of all time. And I think Wemby can enter that chat, but you also, it's not just based off talent. If it was just based off talent, Bill Walton would be in that conversation. But Bill Walton is not because Bill Walton couldn't stay healthy. So just to look at the first 3 years for all those all-time greats and how Wembanyama is starting to stack up, it's starting to become a little concerning for Wembanyama. Because again, if you're going to be called the greatest of all time, you have to accumulate as many awards as possible, as many accomplishments as possible. Wembanyama even said it the other day during his interview with Scott Van Pelt. He is chasing everything. Well, right now, he's in danger of falling behind in that race to chase everything. Think about Wilt. First 3 years of Wilt's career, already had an MVP, already had 3 top 5 MVP finishes, 3 All-NBA teams, including all 3 being first teams. Bill Russell, 3 years into his career, an MVP, 2 top 5 MVP finishes, 2 titles, 2 All-NBA teams, including 1 first team All-NBA. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 2 MVPs, 3 years into his career, 3 top 5 MVP finishes, finished in the top 5 all 3 years. 1 title, 1 finals MVP, 3 All-NBA teams, including 2 first teams, 2 All-Defensive teams. That's his first 3 years. LeBron, 2 All-NBA teams, including 1 first team, 1 top 5 MVP finish. Larry Bird, 1 title, 3 All-NBA teams, all of them first teams, 1 All-Defensive team, 3 top 5 MVP finishes. Magic Johnson, 2 titles, 2 finals MVPs, 1 All-NBA team. Michael Jordan, 2 All-NBA teams, including 1 first team and 2 top 5 MVP finishes. So all of those guys finished in the top 5 for MVP at least once in their first 3 years outside of Magic Johnson. But even in Magic, and all of them made a first team All-NBA outside of Magic within their first 3 years. But Magic, while he didn't have those individual accomplishments for the regular season, had 2 titles and 2 finals MVPs. So he made up for the lack of regular season stuff. Meanwhile, you look at Wembanyama's resume, and those are the 7 guys he's chasing. Now he's chasing more. He's chasing Tim Duncan. He's chasing Kobe. He's chasing Curry. He's chasing West, Oscar, Hakeem, Moses, on and on. But those 7 guys who I view as the greatest players of all time all had a massive list of accomplishments 3 years deep into their career. Wembanyama has the talent to be those guys. He doesn't have the hardware, though. This is 3 years deep. Even if he does qualify, he'll be behind some of those guys in regards to accomplishments. But 3 years deep, if he doesn't qualify, if he doesn't get one more game under his belt, which I think he will, I think they'll trot him out there if they can. It's important to him, so it should be important to San Antonio. But if he doesn't do that, the only individual accomplishments he has on his resume 3 years into his career is a Rookie of the Year, which all of those guys also have outside of Magic Johnson, and then an all-defensive team, which he got in his first year. So he's falling way behind the pace here of some of these other all-time greats, even though he might just be as talented if he doesn't start racking up some individual regular season awards. So that's topic number 1. Topic number 2, we will get into this Shams Charania article on Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Bucks organization, but I want to attack it in a different angle, so it's not the same thing that I'm talking about in the show with Eddie Johnson, Sirius XM NBA Radio, the NBA app, 4 to 7 Eastern Time. And I want to look at this through the prism of Doc Rivers, okay? Because, this latest article here from Shams cited one source close to the team as saying the following: this is as toxic a team situation as any in the league. They waited until the very end on Giannis, and now everyone knows. And again, a lot of that is on Giannis. A lot of it is on ownership for not pulling the plug. A lot of it is on John Horst in the front office. But Doc Rivers is not innocent. Doc Rivers is acting like he's me. He's acting like he's you, like he's a fan. He has no say in what the mood is around that organization or how successful they are. Like he's just an innocent bystander. That's not the case. A couple of days ago, he said this. He said, I'm in the middle of this and have nothing to do with these decisions. Coaches don't decide these situations. Okay, like we understand that it's above his pay grade, but it doesn't mean that he's got a free pass not to create an environment that people want to go work in. And that's not what he's doing right now, according to these different sources in the Shams article. You see it even in the record. He might not be the main person to blame. He's not completely innocent. I mean, Adrian Griffin was 30-13 right before he got fired. Went to the NBA Cup. Doc is 95-100 since he took over. If the team played better under Doc, who's the head coach, then Giannis wouldn't want out. If Doc's not going to get credit for how bad this team is, then Doc doesn't get credit for winning the championship in 2008 with the Celtics. You can't only take credit for the good stuff and no blame for the bad stuff. And then how about this story from Shams? Now, again, this article will break it down in full, and Doc will be the last on the list in regards to the stuff that we probably get to. But how about this cringeworthy line from Shams in this piece on Giannis today in the Bucks situation? He said, Rivers, who won an NBA title as a coach of the Celtics in 2008, will be enshrined to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame later this year, started the meeting. So this is a meeting between Doc and the team by imploring his players to look up his resume. 6 people in the room told ESPN. Look up my resume. Now, first of all, that's something that, makes you almost completely tune the guy out. What an egomaniac. What a narcissist. But then let's look up the resume for Doc Rivers. Here's what I would say in my assessment of the Doc Rivers resume. I think he overachieved at Orlando. I'll give him credit for that. I thought he was great in Orlando. Then I thought he achieved in Boston. Okay? Meaning, I don't think he underachieved in Boston. I don't think he overachieved in Boston. I think he did the average job. If you had thrown other coaches in there, they would have won that title, most likely just like Doc, is what I'm trying to say. And then ever since then, to me, he has underachieved. He underachieved, so he overachieved at Orlando, achieved in Boston, with the Clippers, with Philadelphia, with Milwaukee. I feel like he's underachieved. I mean, has anybody coached more talent than Doc Rivers over the last 13 years since he left Boston? Since he departed Boston, Doc Rivers has coached Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Joel Embiid, James Harden, pre-debacle Ben Simmons, Giannis, Damian Lillard. He's coached all of those guys, including some of them in the very weak Eastern Conference. He has not got out of the second round one time. Not been past the second round one time. He left Boston so he wouldn't have to rebuild. The Celtics since have been to 2 finals, won an NBA championship, been to a gazillion conference finals. Doc left to coach superstars because he didn't want to rebuild like Boston was, and he hasn't been out of the second round one time. And he's telling people to go look at his resume. Hasn't been out of the second round one time in 13 years since leaving the Celtics. I went and I did a little, research on the over-unders because that's the best indication as to whether you are overachieving or you are underachieving as a head coach, right? So, for example, this year, Jordan Ott's got to be one of the Coach of the Year candidates because he went to Phoenix. Their over-under was like 30 and a half games. They're somewhere up around 45. Joe Mazzulla, another candidate for Coach of the Year. Supposed to be around 500. They're going to win 50-plus games. Same thing with J.B. Bickerstaff. Because at the outset, Vegas, the public, people in general, looked at the roster, said this is what they should be, and they overachieved on that. Doc, meanwhile, at almost every spot, has underachieved. He went to the Clippers first year, 2014. Under. 2015 with the Clippers. Under. 2016 with the Clippers. Under. 2017 with the Clippers. Under. 2018 with the Clippers. Under. That's like 5 consecutive years to start his Clippers career. He did worse than what Vegas thought they would do at the beginning of the year. Then 2019, when he actually had the worst team of his Clippers run, where they didn't have the expectations. Remember in the first round when they pushed, I think it was Golden State, Patrick Beverly, that team actually was over. Like, accomplished the over. Then 2020, they have that horrible year with the bubble. They blow the 3-1 series lead. 2021, he goes to the Clippers, finished over there as he did in 2022 and 2023. But then ever since Milwaukee, under in 2024, under last year, it's going to be under again this year, 3 straight unders. So in 13 years since leaving Boston, no trips past the second round despite all that talent, 9 years where they didn't reach the over-under, 4 years where they exceeded it. So based off that information, if that's what he was telling his players to look at in the resume, then his team's underachieved. So he's done a bad job. I appreciate everybody for chiming in here on the chat. By the way, if you do have something to say, I've been responding. It's easier for me to respond on YouTube than it is on Twitter, than it is on Instagram, because I get so many more comments over there. So if you're watching the show, you want to leave a comment on the YouTube page, that would be fantastic. Leave a like, whatever you'd like to do. Or you can rip me. But I've been responding to just about everybody over there. So we'll attack this angle here with the Bucks in a different way than I did on this program, but I wanted to get into the Doc aspect of things here today with you guys. Finally, before we get to the story here on Bill Russell, just one note on the Knicks. They win last night. They were 0-5 in their last 5 games against teams with winning records. They go down to Atlanta. They're down by 5 late. They then beat the Hawks there. I mean, just a crazy ending where CJ McCollum's shot was just on his fingertips. Went in from half court, so the Knicks lucked out there a little bit. Here's my big take, and again, we'll expand on this during the program. I want to get into some of Mike Breen's comments about expectations and how the Knicks, shouldn't have to win a title or get to the finals in order for the season to be a success. I completely disagree, but I'll do that with Eddie. What I do want to say here is the difference in that game last night between the Hawks and the Knicks was Jalen Brunson late. He was fantastic in the fourth quarter. They pointed it out on the broadcast. I think it was Jamal Crawford that was talking about it on the broadcast last night, is that the Knicks have a go-to guy down the stretch. The Hawks are still trying to figure that out. Hawks don't know if their go-to guy is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who was the best player, by the way, on the floor yesterday for both teams. They don't know if it's Jalen Johnson. They don't know if it's CJ McCollum. The Knicks know. And Jalen Brunson has not had one of his better seasons this year. I think it's his worst as a Knick, to be honest with you. He's always been in the MVP conversation since he's been in New York. He is not this year. So I think he's taken a step back. He's not going to be on anybody's list of the top 5 players this year. He's not going to be on the list of the top 10 players. But if you're making a list of the guys you want with the ball in their hands down the stretch of a game, he's at the top of the list. Or he's pretty darn close. A couple of years ago, he won Clutch Player of the Year. Should get some votes again this season. SGA is going to win that award going away, and rightfully so. But the list of guys that you want ahead of Jalen Brunson has got to be short in the fourth quarter of a close game. I mean, maybe it is SGA, maybe it is Jokic, maybe it is Luka, and that's it. You can have a conversation about, I don't know, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, but I would go with, Jamal Murray perhaps. But if I'm picking a guy, ball in his hands, 1-2 point game, minute left, give me Jalen Brunson over everybody in the league outside of maybe just SGA, Jokic, and Luka Doncic. He'd be my go-to guy. So we'll dive a little bit more into the Knicks during the show coming up in a couple of minutes, 4 o'clock Eastern time, Sirius XM, NBA Radio. All right, so now it's time for my favorite part of these shows, okay? I've been enjoying doing the stories at the end where I give you a little insight into behind the scenes stuff. And I was trying to think about what I should do today. And I figure let's land on this Bill Russell story. So one of the great thrills of my career, and one of my goals, okay, is, the main goal is just to do a radio show Monday through Friday. And then on top of that, it gets to be all NBA and it gets to be during drive time. Couldn't be happier with my career. So that was like the goal at the start. But ever since I knew I was solidified in the role here as the host of this show on Sirius, I said, I want to interview my top 10 players in the history of the sport. So we check off Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson multiple times, both those guys multiple times. Larry Bird, got LeBron before LeBron refused to do interviews with me, was able to secure one with him. Basically have interviewed all the guys that would be on my list as the top 10 players in NBA history, a couple of them a couple of times. One that I wasn't able to secure was Wilt Chamberlain, and I have another really good story about Wilt from my high school days before I even broke it. So I have had a interaction with Wilt, let's put it that way, but it wasn't to interview him. It was back before I was involved in this career. And then the only other two, I haven't interviewed Duncan. I haven't interviewed Jordan. Duncan, so I'll give you the story on Duncan first. So Duncan gave us an opportunity to interview him. He says to us a couple of years ago, I want to talk about hurricane recovery in the Virgin Islands, which is a commendable cause. He says, but I'm not going to answer any basketball questions. So I say, well, then why would we interview Tim Duncan, but just ask him about hurricane relief, no basketball questions? So I then countered with, because he was offering 10 minutes. I said, all right, 10 minutes, 5 on the hurricane stuff, 5 on the basketball. And he said, well, his people, 1 question on basketball, the rest on the hurricane stuff. And I said, no, split. We do you a favor, 50%. You do us a favor, 50%. They refused. So they were being high maintenance. I'm not going to interview Tim. Nobody cares about Tim Duncan. Like, again, a good cause. I'm sure people would contribute to that, but nobody cares about listening to a 10-minute interview where Tim Duncan's going to answer one question on basketball, which is why people tune into the station, and then listen to 9 minutes of Tim Duncan talking about hurricane relief. You have to give us something in order for us to give you something. So I turned down the Tim Duncan interview. And again, rightfully so. You have to have your standards. But he is one of the top 10 players I've never interviewed. Kobe, I was fortunate enough to get an interview. I'll tell you that story at a different time. So really the only top 10 guys that I have not interviewed are Tim Duncan, Michael Jordan, and Wilt Chamberlain. And Wilt, I just had no opportunity because he's deceased before I even broke into my career. So Bill Russell, I'm sitting down with in April of 2014. And I remember the exact month and year and all that type of stuff because it was the same exact day that the Donald Sterling tape came out. And Donald Sterling would eventually lose the Clippers, okay? The racist comments that Donald Sterling made, that was leaked, I believe, by TMZ that night. And it was really awkward because I'm covering a Legends event at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And I'm sitting down with guys like Rick Barry, guys like Jim Calhoun, Johnny Dawkins, Dave Cowens, eventually Bill Russell. But I had to ask all of these guys their thoughts on this news that was just breaking moments ago. So, I mean, they were, stunned. They were all varying, they didn't know how to react to it. Some of them didn't want to talk about it on the air. So anyway, that's the reason I remember exactly the year, the month, etc., is we had that major breaking news story as I was sitting down to interview these guys. So anyway, I interviewed Dave Cowens, Rick Barry, Johnny Dawkins, Calhoun, a couple of other legends that are there at Mohegan Sun. And I have an interview with Bill Russell. Now, that's going to be the thrill of my career. All right. Just, you're interviewing one of the all-time greats and a guy that very rarely does interviews. So I'm all dressed up to the nines. They bring me back into a special room. I get to sit down with Bill Russell. Now, I've got all these pictures in my apartment of me with Kareem, me with Magic, me with Bird, me with Rick Barry, me with, all the legends of the sport while we're interviewing them, or sometimes right after the interview. The issue here is normally I travel with a producer. This might have been the only situation I was actually at without a producer. I had a handheld mic. I had the recorder. So there was about 50 people watching this interview, so I also had the pressure of that. So I could have asked one of them for a picture, but again, they were all higher ups within the NBA. I didn't want to ask somebody that's got an important position within the NBA to snap a photo of me. So in retrospect, that's a regret. So I sit down with Bill Russell, opportunity of a lifetime. Sirius is pumped because they think, hey, we're going to get Bill Russell on our air. This is right after Bill Russell gets a statue in Boston. It's right in Government Center. It's about a mile from where I live. So Bill Russell gets the statue. I interview him. Maybe it's a couple of months later. My first question has to do with the statue. Bill Russell, now he's older at this point, right? So Bill Russell starts cackling in that famous Bill Russell cackle and starts talking about how there's going to be pigeons crapping all over the statue. And ha, ha, ha. All right, that's great. We've broken the ice. Now we can move on. For 5 minutes, all Bill Russell did was go back and anything I brought up, Red Auerbach, Bob Cousy, the current Celtics, whatever it was, all he kept going back to was the statue, cackling about it, and not getting off the subject. The interview was so bad that we couldn't even use it on the air because it was just him laughing, cackling, and talking about a pigeon crapping on his statue for 5 minutes. So it was a thrill to sit down with him. The interview went completely off the chain. I didn't really know what to do because, I'm just sitting there by myself in front of 50 people with the great Bill Russell trying to ask him questions. But that's how it went. And I'll give you one other side bar here, and I might have even told this in my Rick Barry happy birthday about his 82nd birthday. Bill Russell, one time when I was first starting my career, so that was 2014. I had already been in the career for a while. 2007, I'm sitting down with Rick Barry back in Colorado Springs as the host, Rick Kamla as the other host. I am just getting my feet wet, so I'm a fill-in host. I'm a producer. I'm an update anchor. So I'm sitting in a room with Rick Kamla, Rick Barry, and myself. Then we have Rick Barry, or Rick, so Rick Kamla, myself, and Bill Russell are in a room by ourselves. Rick Barry is back in Colorado Springs where he hosted the show from. Rick Kamla starts the program and says, "We now welcome in the greatest player of all time, Bill Russell." Rick Barry says, wait a second. He interrupts and he says, "One of the greatest players of all time." Oh my God, it was so awkward. Because I didn't know how, and Kamla and I looked at each other. There was dead silence. Then, thank God, Bill Russell just started doing that cackle thing again. So those are my two interactions with Bill Russell in my life. He cackled through both of them. And unfortunately, I don't even have the interview where I sat down with Bill Russell. Some of these other all-time greats, I've got the interviews, the Bird ones, the Magic ones, the Kareem ones, although there's so many with Kareem. The Kobe one I still have. But the Bill Russell one I do not have, and it never aired because all Bill Russell did was talk about pigeons pooping on his statue and then cackling about it for 5 consecutive minutes. All right, so that's our show for today. They've been running about a half hour here every time that we sit down and do it. Looking forward to the show today on Sirius XM NBA Radio, again, where I've been a host for, I don't know, since 2005 or so. So we're 20 plus years in at Sirius. And for the first time, we're trying something a little different. That's our YouTube show. So make sure you like the YouTube shows. Make sure you subscribe to them. We're going to continue to build. Hopefully, we'll start doing some trivia. We'll start doing a bunch of guests. Maybe during the postseason, as many times as possible, I will jump on immediately after the games and do some post-game shows, okay? So follow along on Twitter, at Termini Radio, at TERMINE Radio. You can also do the same on Instagram and TikTok, at Termini NBA, at TERMINE NBA. And of course, I'm wearing the suit today from Deepak, DCLA. We appreciate him for sponsoring the program. We will catch up with you guys soon. And again, trying to do these every other day. Thanks for stopping by for a half hour.